Hello, heretics. This is Lilith. I'm here with Renee, and we are Veritas Voices. How are you doing today, this morning or evening or whatever it is where you are? um, as you may have noticed on Twitter, I have a cold. So since I'm not very smart when I'm sick and have slept weird hours, Renee has graciously found some horrifically stupid Christian tweets for us to read. So this is Crazy Christian Tweets, episode 2. I know some of you liked it. I wasn't planning on doing it again this soon, but coffee can only do so much for my brain power when I've been sick for a week. So here we are. Renee, are you still
here? Yeah. First of all, I hope you get better soon. But with that said, I think we should get right into it.
Oh, so, you're right.
The first tweet in question is from a fan account of G.K. Chesterton. He was a Catholic and a sort of apologist and all that stuff. And he had something pretty stupid to say. So what he did say was the following. Christianity is fighting for its existence, but it is always fighting for its existence. It thrives on persecution.
Now, the question is this more or less stupid than what he said last week about divorce? Or the other week, whatever it was? Because, I don't know.
In my estimation, it's just a total disconnect from reality. I mean, while Christianity is in decline, it's still, as we are speaking now, that may change in the future, but as we are talking, Christianity is the dominant religion in the world. There are over 2 billion people who adhere to Christianity, if you count in Catholics, which Chesterton would most definitely do, and Christianity is not fighting for its existence at all.
Yeah, I know. Well, I mean, hey, we've discussed it before, the Christian persecution complex. You're going to persecute me or I'm going to make you persecute me. And the truth of the matter is, like anything that has gone as far and lasted as long as Christianity, there have been pockets of legitimate persecution. There have been horrible things done by, totalitarian regimes and other things that, don't like divided loyalty. But for Chesterton in his time and his day and age, like he's sort of think like around the time of C.S. Lewis and, a British Catholic. I mean, he was dealing with the same stuff that, Christians nowadays are dealing with. People occasionally thinking his ideas were a bit stupid. Oh, the humanity! Ugh.
I mean, Christians, at least in the Western world, I don't think are really persecuted at all. I mean,
they're the persecutors more than anything else, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, just because you do the zeitgeist has sort of shifted a little bit, and just because not everyone is Christian anymore, just because we don't base our laws on the Bible, it doesn't mean that Christians are in any way persecuted or that Christianity is on the brink of extinction. But this also ties in, I think, to a sort of will or a sort of desire to be persecuted, because after all, Jesus said that Christians were going to be hated and they were going to be persecuted because they adhered to him. And if that isn't the case, then Jesus was kind of wrong. So.
Yeah, or they aren't real Christians, so they have to make sure people hate them. They're doing a great job of it, by the way, with this Christian dominionism trying to take over and turn everything back to the dark fucking ages. I thought Islam was the one that was going to try that. I guess they still are, but seem to be... I don't think it's a great decision. Like, which dark ages do you want to be in? No! I don't want to be in the dark ages. I want to be with the sane people who make iPhones.
Yeah.
And, let private people alone without trying to look down their pants because they're obsessed with gender norms.
Yeah. I mean, I think while Christians are persecuted on occasion or in different places, and they were also kind of persecuted historically. Chesterton and Christians in the Western world, like in Europe and America and that stuff, I don't think that there's much persecution going on. So,
well, and technically, the
just
evangelicals are supporting Trump, and Trump just absolutely abandoned the Kurds to be massacred. And the Kurdish population, among all the, class distinct group populations in that region, is the most Christian. So technically, evangelicals are supporting a man who left actual persecuted Christians to be massacred by Muslims. So really, they're the authors of their own persecution in more ways than one.
Yeah. And also one more thing about persecution, which I want to bring up because I know that you have also seen that what's happening right now, which is the new law that is passed in Uganda, which was also supported and informed by Christian organizations.
Yeah, they want to kill gays and have the Ugandans kill gays in their country just on the street randomly. But they're being persecuted because we laugh at them. Yeah. Honestly, we have to laugh because crying is the alternative. Yeah. And I can only stay so hydrated.
And they're also being persecuted because they can't push these laws on gays sort of in the Western world, or laws that are similar to it, like with gay marriage and that stuff. So that's sort of an intolerance of biblical values, apparently.
Oh, they might have to refuse a couple of party invitations from people who probably didn't actually want them to come anyway. Poor things. Yeah. Thoughts and prayers. Ugh. Anyway, I am going to lose my mind if I don't change the topic. Unfortunately, I don't think this is going to be any better. This one, Allie Beth Stuckey, she's a conservative personality, I guess. I don't know much about her. But this was actually in response to the British court in the transgender case. Well, okay, it's a clickbait headline from the Daily Wire. The Bible belief is incompatible with human dignity. Obviously, it was more that this particular person's highly colored interpretation of Bible belief was, incompatible with human dignity. And of course, this bimbo says, the only reason anyone has any idea of human dignity, whether they know it or not, is because of the Bible. You want to respond to that particular bit of lunacy?
Yes, definitely. I mean, first of all, the Bible hasn't existed for 1,900 years. Or it came into existence, I think, 100 years after Jesus' supposed birth.
Yeah, it wasn't canonized until 400 years after. So, the final.
But the Bible wasn't finished until that point, and Jesus evidently, or Christians would say that Jesus had an understanding of human dignity, but he did so at a point where there was no such thing as the Bible. So even from a Christian perspective, from a biblical perspective, she is refuted by her own scripture.
Fair enough. Although, granted, I think she's thinking about, the whole of the Bible, from the beginning and all that. It reminds me a bit of a rebuttal I was watching to one of PragerU's idiocies about the 10 Commandments being, the best moral standard ever. And they pointed out, which is quite true, that the 10 Commandments cribbed any of its decent points from the law of Hammurabi that existed before it. And we actually have an original because it really was carved in stone. That was also a ripoff. And it's a way better moral code than Leviticus and all of that shit. It's way better. And I'm not saying it's perfect. It was still a very brutal and barbaric time, but it's better than what the Bible had going. So, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. The people with the greatest concepts of human dignity, the philosophers, and I mean, even the Romans, with a certain degree of the, who adopted that idea of expanding but allowing people to keep part of their cultures, and certain of those laws, that was all recognizing human dignity before Christians came along. You want to look at, civilization, the greatest reputation of Christianity, I think, is China. They didn't have a damn hand in that. And look at the millennia of, culture and philosophy and law and everything else.
Yeah. And what I also want to say is, as far as the 10 Commandments go, I'm not a big fan of any of them, to be honest, because I think they are personally a little bit too Kantian, right? I mean, thou shalt not steal or thou shalt not lie. There are certain situations where many people would find that to be disagreeable moral commands. And another thing is, which you brought up about China, I mean, there have been philosophies around way before Christianity. I mean, think Buddha and Buddhism and the peace that he preached and the message that he had nothing to do with Christianity, and yet it is a philosophy that worked, and it is a philosophy that proposed the human dignity solely apart from the Bible. So her claim is simply untenable. It's evidently not true that you need the Bible in order to have a sense of human dignity.
This is one of the many things, particularly in America, but other places too, where evangelical Christians have been really working hard on their revisionist history for the last, honestly, half a century at least, trying to convince people that the Bible is the source of all these ideas. And, they teach it to their children in homeschool or try and get pushed into the regular schools. It's ridiculous. In order to believe it, you have to be educated in a very narrow and specific way with that goal in mind, and to ignore, massive quantities of history and literature and everything else.
Yeah. It's
basically, they want to take credit for all the stuff that secularism and reason and the scientific method have brought, and it's bullshit.
I mean, it's just flat out false. If they could theoretically say that a sense of human dignity comes from God, I would obviously dispute even that, but it's coming from the Bible's just flat out false. It's demonstrably false because of people like Buddha, because of other philosophies in the past which didn't have a Bible.
Had no connection with their whole thing,
And if you want to maintain that belief, you have to really work hard to not listen to these examples which we just gave, and to just flat out ignore any and all counterpoints. Not even listen to it, because
if you have your education steamrolled by evangelicals who push you and keep, the majority of knowledge of history from you, then it's not as hard as you think. But I can't. I'm going to start ranting even more than I've already done, which is enough. I'm going to go on.
I find it hard how they could just ignore Buddha right out of the gate. I mean, that for me is the most obvious.
Oh, sweetie, of course they ignore Buddha. You just have to laugh. Remember, that's the alternative to crying.
Yeah.
But I want to go to. I want to go to Grinny Jowls himself, Pastor John Haggie. Yeah. I always imagine he jiggles when he speaks around the face.
There was a tweet by Pastor John Haggie, and I think in
that was mine. Yeah, I get. Oh no, you're right. That's you. Sorry. This is why I need more coffee. Yeah. Praise be unto our Lord and Savior coffee, who gives me reason in the morning.
Yeah. So it was a tweet by Pastor John Haggie. I think many of you might be familiar with him. He's unevangelical, he's unreasonable, and he's also rather famous. So he had this to say, quote, "The God that we serve is not a dictator who is mad all the time. God is a loving father looking for a way to help you, and to make your life a beautiful thing once you surrender to his way and his kingdom.
Yes,
Any
yes.
thoughts?
Sorry?
Do you have any thoughts concerning that?
Yes, yes. Surrender to the dark side. You have no idea the power. Yeah, that's it's really what they do want. There's an element of honesty there. Everything will be beautiful once you surrender yourself to us.
Yeah.
Surrender. Give in. And it's like, dude, no. Oh my God. No. Just get behind me, jiggly Satan.
Yeah. Just I just want to kind of read it out again so that we may grasp this. The God that we serve is not a dictator who's mad all the time. God is a loving Father looking for a way to help you make to make your life a beautiful thing. Once you surrender to his way and his kingdom. So he says God is not a dictator, but you have to surrender to him and to his kingdom. In other words, God is not a dictator. He's a loving Father, but he's a dictator. He just contradicted himself blatantly, and he doesn't even realize it.
Oh, of course he doesn't. Well, and we know that fatherhood is always, completely benevolent in dictatorship. They're never the big brother family relationships are never abused in the analogy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what kind of father Pastor John Haggie had, but my father personally, and I think this goes for your family as well, my family never asked me to bow down to them and to surrender and to give in.
Oh, yeah, there was not exactly any bowing or genuflecting in my family either. That would be weird. Seriously, the fuck people. Anyway, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It just hurts my brain. It hurts my brain. It's so much stupid. There's so much. Ugh. Okay. I'm going to be okay. I'm going to be, well, the world probably isn't going to be okay. But yeah, this is the carrot and the stick, but this is intended to be the carrot. The idea that God loves you and wants to help you and make your life beautiful. It's more of a poisoned apple though. And I like that he mentions the word he's not a dictator. Like have you by any chance been hearing the criticisms that you worship a maniacal dictator? Because maybe there's a reason that, yeah, maybe.
I mean, in a way, Hagee wants to have his cake and eat it too. I mean, on one hand, he says, God,
I think he does that a lot.
On one hand, he says, God is not a dictator. He loves you. Give in. He's a loving father. Surrender. He loves you and he died for you, and all he wants to have is a relationship with you. Let him in. It's like in one way, he loves you, he died for you, he's such a great person, he wants a relationship with you, and now you better bow down or he will burn you.
Yep. Burning.
Which, of
Yeah,
course,
I'm sorry.
God doesn't want to burn you. He's just a righteous judge, and he has to do what he has to do, despite the fact that he's ultimately responsible for our existence and for sin and for everything in the first place. Which is going to be another topic which we have to cover, but yeah.
Yeah, I think we end up covering it kind of in everything else every time because it's such a stupid claim. Yeah, he's the most powerful being in the universe, but nothing is his fault. And he knows everything, but it's not his fault. Nothing is his fault, ever.
And he wanted to test us, but it's not his fault, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he did have to test us, so the fall wouldn't have happened. He's at least partially responsible, but he loves you and dies for you, and he doesn't want you in a predicament, despite the fact that he is at least partially responsible for you being in a predicament.
Yeah, he's completely responsible. Don't cut him any slack. He doesn't deserve it.
Yeah.
Oh, good Lord. All right. Well,
So,
after Haggie, oh God, this was the one I was going to do. It's just, we both commented on this week, as did many, many other people. Desiring God, which is actually an account for a rather well-known Christian minister, or
I
well,
think
the
his name is John
church.
Piper, right?
Yeah, I think it is John. Yeah, no, it is John Piper. You're right. Um, and he wrote, oh God, about Christian hedonism. Well, there's an article about it, but his summary to entice people to read his article is as follows. God cares more about your happiness than you do. He is so serious about your joy that he threatens hell if you refuse to find it in him.
Yeah. That
What
makes sense.
the fuck?
Yeah. I mean, in a way, it can be translated as God wants you to be happy and he cares so much about your happiness, but don't you dare find it anywhere else but with him. That pisses him off.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, and he gives the game away with if you don't find it in him, because he cares so much about your happiness, so much, so very, very much, and about you finding it in him. That is apparently the most important part. How is it's like the man who's like, I love you so much, if you leave me, I'll kill you.
Yeah.
In what way is it different? Seriously, find any way in which what John Piper just said is any different from the abusive spouse. Granted, speaking for God, but hell, you have to be happy or I'll burn you? Who the fuck comes up with this shit?
Yeah. It's like, yeah, of course I want you to be happy. Please be happy. That's all I want for you. But if you find it with anybody else, there's gonna be hell to pay, literally, in the case of God.
This stupid hurts.
Yeah. But that's also like often the point within Christianity is that God is not in it to save people just because he's a good guy. No, he has to have the credit.
Yeah,
He's not an altruist. No, he has to have the credit. He has to have. He wants you to be happy, but only with him, and you have to thank him and you have to glorify him because that gets up his ego, apparently.
Yeah, well, that's always the most important part of these things is that God feels warm and fuzzy, because otherwise he will burn you. And you have to like convince him that you love him and that you're really happy to love him. And it has nothing to do at all with the fact that he would burn you. But remember, John Hagee told us he's not a dictator.
Yeah.
Because that's not at all what they would do.
And when it comes down to it, the God they worship or the God that they describe with such statements is really kind of pathetic, I think, because the perfect God who is as glorious as they think him to be couldn't care less about getting credit, couldn't care less about us feeding into his ego, couldn't care less about
Oh yeah, no,
us
I mean
having to have
it's the
happiness
old
in him.
it's the old dichotomy that really obliterates Christianity. Any God who deserved worship wouldn't want worship. We recognize that in the stories of our human heroes, Washington or Caesar, both giving up the absolute power and going back to the farm after they had done their, the great victories for the people. We know this. We know this in every other area of life. We can't admit that if a supernatural being acts like an insane 5-year-old, they're still acting like an insane 5-year-old.
Yeah.
Or maybe that kid with all the power from Twilight Zone.
Yeah. I mean, if we take a look maybe at heroes from fictional stories like Spider-Man, like Superman, like Harry Potter, and I want to pick Harry Potter because that's
You
sort
love
of
you, Harry Potter. I know.
But let's say if the book ended with Harry having defeated Voldemort, but after that he goes about it being a douche and he wants to be glorified and he wants everyone to thank him and he wants to become the Minister of Magic because of his
Because I is to so important and shiny.
his achievement. I think that would leave a sour taste in the mouth of the Harry Potter fan because at that point, Harry would be kind of a dick.
Well, that would be when he would no longer be the hero, and that's that kind of wheel of characterization and character turning. You do see that, and what is it with Yeah, no, like in The Dark Knight, you either die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Yeah. It's not an unheard of circumstance, but you're still a villain at that point.
Yeah.
Crazy idea, I know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I think with the following tweet from none other than Ken Ham, I think we come sort of full circle as far as the persecution complex is concerned.
Oh, goody, this will be fun.
Because Ken Ham, I don't think I need to tell you who that person is. Had the following to say on Twitter recently. There are many atheist tax-exempt nonprofit organizations, e.g., the Freedom from Religion Foundation. Would a Christian running for president insist that such groups should have their exempt status revoked because they don't believe in God? Of course not. Continued. Discrimination against the Christian worldview, against what the Bible clearly teaches, is becoming more rampant. One could easily see how the Bible could be banned and Christians jailed if those who blatantly discriminate against Christians had the power to do so in this culture.
Yeah, that sounds like Jesus Christ. Okay, seriously, am I the only person who? I mean, those organizations actually do something. Freedom from Religion actively works to preserve people's civil and human rights. They're doing something for people. Brainwashing children is not doing something for people. And coming from Ken Ham, this is pretty fucking rich, since he has been manipulating things to get around the rules that come with non-tax exempt or with tax exempt status in his own, scam artist things. The Ark, for example, they are supposed to be a non-profit because they're really a church, which is probably the only accurate statement about it. They're a religious organization or whatever, but they're also for-profit because they're a museum, but they're not really a museum, obviously. And so he got a whole bunch of tax breaks for business, and then tries to get religious tax exemption. And then when someone says, well, okay, but then you can't refuse to hire gay people or refuse to hire anyone who doesn't sign your, yes, I completely believe that God made the earth in 6 24-hour time periods 6,000 years ago, and that the worldwide flood was totally historical, as in the Bible.
Yeah. That and anyone also, who of course, believe in Jesus because.
Oh yeah, no, Christian, but like that kind of Christian, yeah. And like everything else, you can't refuse to hire people to give them a job on that basis if you're a nonprofit. Yeah. He fought it, and he did this weird thing where like he made one part of it for profit, like the gates are for profit and the rest of it is not for profit. So he's playing both sides. Completely disingenuous, completely screwing over his own employees, too. Yeah. There are some horrible stories have come out of absolute insanity. And yeah, just seriously?
one thing which I also want to touch on is talk about the slippery slope fallacy being employed here.
Yeah.
I mean, just because they don't get tax-exempt status anymore, it therefore follows that the Bible will be completely banned and we will throw Christians into jail just because they're Christians, and soon there will even be capital punishment. I mean, no, that's not how things work. I mean, for one thing, why would we want to ban the Bible? The Bible is largely responsible for creating atheists. The last thing we want to do is ban the Bible.
Why would we bet? Are you kidding? Make it mandatory. Everybody has to read it straight through, all the way from the beginning to the end, all the way.
I would say they should read the Bible starting with the book of Leviticus.
Oh, no, that's cruel. Yeah, do it.
You know, I mean, we wouldn't throw Christians into jail just because they're Christians. That's insane. That's what dictatorship states do, and we have secular states, and that's not what we would do at all. And the
irony is that as a tax-exempt organization,
the irony really is that he has to say that he has to thank secularism and not sort of a theocracy, that he has rights to be a Christian, rights to his belief, and that he does not get to be judged by people who disagree with him because America is a secular state. Were he to live in Pakistan or Iran or Afghanistan or whatever, he would absolutely have to fear that he would be jailed because those are theocracies. But because America is a secular state, a state that allows you to have freedom of religion and freedom from religion, that's the reason why he can believe and say what he believes and says.
Yeah, I know. But let's be honest. It's not like we were expecting anything approaching honesty from Ken Hambone. Oh, God, he's such an idiot. I'm sorry. He's so stupid. He's so stupid. I can't take it. It hurts.
Well, one thing which I would say about Ken Ham is that he's definitely ignorant and definitely wants to drive home a narrative, but I think that he knows that he's lying. I don't think he's stupid. I think he knows that what he's saying is not true, but he says it anyways because that will well up his followers, and that will give people the impression that they are persecuted, and that again into his narrative.
Well, it does keep them invested. Very, very invested. Oh, God, the exhaustion. I just can't even.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember living like that. It was horrible.
Yeah. Well, I suggest then that we could move on to sort of one of the followers of
yes. Speaking of living in absolute ignorance beyond the pale of human reason, we have Phoenix Girl replying to the Prince of Atheism because she doesn't understand evolution or DNA or science or logic or anything. Her response to the pointing out that we are apes, because we are, was to say, if we really are apes, our DNA would be 100% identical to apes. That's just basic science. It's not so. Science itself tells us we ain't apes because our DNA isn't identical. So we ain't apes. Super simple.
This is me face palming.
Yeah, I figured that you were probably smashing yourself in the face with something.
Yeah. I mean, if I was 100% identical to my parents, then I would be my dad.
You'd be a clone. You'd be a creepy clone.
Yeah. Nobody is 100% identical to anything, genetically speaking, unless we are clones. But I mean, her basic science is blatantly refuted by actual science.
Well, obviously. Jeez. Where? How? Oh, I just. Why? Why is there so much stupid? It
Because
hurts my brains.
I think there's so much stupid because stupid people like her, ignorant people like her, are too ignorant and stupid to realize how ignorant and stupid they are.
Well, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, seriously though, like 100%. Oh, and of course, she doesn't like. It's like, we're 98%, depending on how you count it,
Well,
similar to other apes.
I recently heard it's 96%, but it's still a very high percentage, and it still confirms that we are definitely apes. So.
Oh yeah, no, it's like I think it's sometimes it depends on how you count it, sort of how
But
you
it's
packet
definitely over
genes.
95%. So yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. So how does she? That's the thing. She doesn't even. You're not even like, hey, so explain the 95%.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Well, my suspicion is that she would not accept that figure of 95%, or because there are creation scientists who say that it's as low as 70%, which is based on untenable methodologies and that stuff. But yeah,
I thought I was like 97% compared to my cat. Or sorry, like 50%. I probably share 50% of my DNA with my cat.
Yeah,
I'd have to look it up.
But there are creations who say that we are only 70% similar to chimps, and they use methodologies which are untenable. But one thing which this woman again illustrates, and which I think is fairly common among creationists, is that they throw out blatant assertions, false assertions, or ask questions of us and don't really want the answers. I mean, one tactic which I employ nowadays is I tell them, well, I'm a layperson. I don't know all about this stuff, but hey, you can readily find it on the internet. How about you look at search engines where you can find peer-reviewed papers? I mean, if you actually want answers, why not go to search engines and find the actual answers? Instead of engaging in a debate where, let's be real, you just want to evangelize to me. You don't want me to answer those pressing questions. You just want to get me to not give an answer, and you want me to not have an answer, so that you can claim that evolution as false, and so that you can do a victory dance and continue to ignore the actual data presented back.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and this is the thing that is quite interesting. I discussed the other day how, the greatest insult Christopher Hitchens could give to someone was, you strike me as someone who has never read the case against your own position, which, I mean, that to him was like, I can't believe I have to say this. And that is one of the worst things he could say to someone. And yet, instead, you have creationists who are devoted to never, ever, ever learning the opposite position.
Yeah. And what I also find really the sad part is that oftentimes they're not even interested in creation science, in their pseudoscience. Like, I think that I know much more about her own position than she knows about her own position.
Well, about the background of it, certainly. That's the thing. It's not actually a science. It's just them desperately trying to shore up a dam in their mind against ideas that might make them think.
Yeah.
And,
But the thing is, I know the arguments to be wrong, and I know why they're wrong. But in order to know that the arguments are wrong and why they're wrong, we also have to know the arguments. And oftentimes they don't even know their own arguments.
No, not at all. They don't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to face palm. I'm going to face palm. Oh, it hurts. But, you know, that's what you get when you send your children to be educated by con men like Ken Ham and Kent Hovind instead of, you know, people who know what they're talking about.
Yeah. And to my knowledge, she also had previous accounts where she was suspended, and there she actively advocated for the fact that she homeschools her children. So there's that.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah. Oh, those poor kids. They don't deserve that. Well, education is, by eroding education is how they got us into this predicament. So if we can fight back the Nazis and get the power out of their hands, the first thing we have to do is shore up education like crazy. No more homeschooling unless you can actually demonstrate that your child is learning at the level required for that grade.
Yeah. And one final thing which I want to say about that, it's not really only just about evolution. I mean, evolution is sort of the big battlefield for them, like the great enemy, but it's not just evolution that is under attack, though evolution is sort of the representative of it all. What is really under attack by creationism is the scientific method itself.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Education in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything that involves free thought and questioning and reasoning that might question their fixed beliefs, by which
and
they mean
challenge them and look at both sides and then make up your mind. That's not permissible at all.
Well, no, that's because that's the thing, is that, you know, that's the first thing you're taught when you're indoctrinated as a child, is that these are the things that you can never question. Never.
Never, ever.
Ever, ever.
And the moment when you start to question is pretty much the moment when it all breaks down.
Yep. Then you're out. Sorry, I just... This is giving me a migraine. Please make these stupid people stop.
Well, we will certainly try our best to do so by posting more videos, by addressing various arguments, and also by having a little bit of fun on occasion, which I hope that you did. I know I did.
I'm glad you did. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for that. I guess that's really everything we can cover. And well, for now, I don't think I can take much more. I'm going to go take decongestants and try and pretend that there aren't people this stupid in the world, at least for half an hour. Yeah. Help me. I need a hug. Stupid hurts. Oh, well, I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Let us know. Again, I know some people really did like it when we did this last time. So, yeah, if you have any suggestions or feedback, reach us at Veritas Voices, either here or on Twitter, or myself, Lilith Liberated, or Renee Belations on Twitter as well. And we have our own YouTube channels here. So I hope you have a wonderful week. Reason bless.
Yeah. Goodbye.